Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. The movie begins with a young man named Eric Love, who is 19 years old, is shown to be started up from juvenile prison to a high-security adult prison, due to his age and history of violent behavior. His father, Neville Love, is serving a life sentence at the same high-security adult prison where Eric is being held. As is customary, Eric had to go through the standard procedures upon entering the maximum security jail. After passing through a battery of very stringent inspections, he is then led to his cell by a security officer. As this was Eric's first stint in an adult facility, the young guy seems to be experiencing great frustration. He decides to construct a weapon for his own protection out of some of the items he had since he felt threatened. In whatever jail, nobody could ensure that he would remain secure. After that, Eric conceals his weapon behind the light box of his cell so the guards wouldn't find it. He starts cleaning up the area and doing some simple exercises while they are waiting for lunch. He gets into a short dispute with another inmate as they both stand in line to purchase lunches. At the time, a man called Yago is in charge of delivering meals to the detainees at the facility where he works. After collecting his lunch rations, Eric returns to his room and continues his work. In that country, women involve only 3% of senior management. Following that, Eric joins the other convicts who had congregated elsewhere on the jail grounds. There, Eric can contact his long-lost father, Neville, who advises the younger man to behave himself. At the same time, he is incarcerated and follows the rules to the letter, so that he may get out of there as quickly as possible. On the other hand, it seems as if Eric disregarded his father's advice and chose to go back to his cell. A short time later, a fellow inmate named MacDonald visits Eric. Mistakenly supposing that MacDonald planned to harm him, Eric knocks the guy out with a brutal beating. As soon as Eric sees that MacDonald had no malicious intent, he hurries the other person to the emergency hospital. On the other hand, the guards promptly detect the assault and take swift steps to protect Eric from further danger. The guards have a difficult time dealing with Eric since he is a young guy who is pretty strong and able to put up a struggle. Finally, a man called Oliver, who is a volunteer prison therapist, arrives to help Eric, and requests the officers to transfer Eric to solitary confinement immediately. Oliver successfully convinces the warden and the other officials at the jail to let Eric participate in the regular therapy sessions at the facility. Oliver phones Eric and attempts to get him to participate in his therapy session after first obtaining authorization to do so from the warden and other authorities. The authorities then proceed to explain the rules that Eric was required to follow while attending the therapy session. If the young man breaks any laws, the authorities state that Eric would be immediately kicked out of Oliver's therapy group, and will never be permitted to attend counseling again. Neville, the right-hand man of the mafia lord who administers the jail, Dennis, attempts to seek protection for his son. Dennis is in charge of running the prison. Dennis is prepared to protect Eric provided that the young guy does not raise problems with the other inmates or the guards, and that he adheres to all of the restrictions that are in place inside the jail. After that, Neville pays a personal visit to Eric when he is incarcerated. Next thing, Neville begs his kid to learn to behave and obey the jail rules so that he may be released. Neville cautions Eric not to get into any trouble, especially with the guards, because if Eric does this, the warden will order the guards to kill Eric, disguising his death as a suicide, so that the prison council will not suspect them. Neville warns Eric not to get into trouble, especially with the guards. Eric assures his father that he would maintain his demeanor, and heed his father's instructions, even though the young man had expressed a desire to go to jail, just so that he could see his dad behind bars. But of course, Eric is saying it to Neville to stop him from going on and on about everything. One day, Eric makes the mistake of walking inside Yago's detention cell, which just so happens to be open, and Yago is aware of his whereabouts. After that, Eric steals Yago's lighter and plays a practical joke on MacDonald by giving him the item. Unsurprisingly, this causes Yago to explode with rage, and he is afterwards made to search the quarters of other inmates to locate his preferred lighter. The next time Eric attends Oliver's therapy session, the young guy causes more problems, and the guards are compelled to take Eric back to the holding cell, where he was originally being held. Although Eric is a very young man, his feelings are quite unsteady. This is particularly true considering that Eric has been deprived of a father role in his childhood, due to Neville's incarceration. Oliver also understands Eric's behaviors, which often leads to confusion and conflict with the other inmates. As a result, Oliver urges the inmates who participated in his therapy session to watch out for Eric and protect him from other inmates and the staff. Hassan, a black prisoner who is a member of Oliver's circle of friends, steps in to rescue Eric after Oliver has begged that Hassan do it. 3 other inmates had been bribed with drugs by Yago to dunk Eric in his toilet. Hassan instantly prevents Eric from fighting back against his assailants, and warns him that doing so would place him in an even more terrible situation. Eric has been on the verge of striking back against his attackers. Hassan's instructions seem to be followed by Eric, as he decides to clean up after himself. Following that encounter, Eric starts to routinely attend Oliver's therapy sessions, and develops friends with other convicts who also participate in the counseling sessions, most of whom were black individuals with violent pasts attempting to address. The meetings often devolve into members furious, posturing tirades against others, which Oliver de-escalates but utilizes to help them understand their wrath. Eric starts to watch and connect with the other members of the group. Neville is irritated by his son's fraternization with black convicts, when he begins attending Olivier's therapy sessions, and they become good friends. Neville says that he requested Eric to hear Oliver's therapy sessions, so that he could learn to regulate his emotions, not so that he could become good friends with the black convicts. When Eric tries to express his sentiments to the uneasy Neville, he feels that his father has a love connection with his cellmate, Ashley, and is appalled by it. The next day, Oliver is seen visiting Eric in his jail cell and attempting to get closer to the young guy. Oliver and Eric talk briefly about their separate pasts and lifestyles, before heading to the counseling room to meet with the others for a therapy session. Despite the bustle and disagreement, Oliver overcomes it, and encourages his group members to suppress their anger and emotions for the jail officials to enable the therapy session. Eric grows increasingly acquainted with Oliver's group members over time, and often exercises with them. Eric is assaulted one day again while having a shower by his other convicts. But Eric retaliates and compels them to reveal who had sent them, which was none other than Yago. An enraged Eric then uses his handmade weapon to stun Yago. He then learns about the prison structure, which places the ultimate authority in the hands of Dennis, the criminal leader who is also a prisoner, rather than the warden. Dennis begins mentoring Eric after seeing his younger self in Eric, recognizing his immense potential. Neville intervenes promptly as Eric attempts to attack Dennis due to a misunderstanding. Dennis then instructs Yago to stop bothering Eric since he is Neville's kid. Following that, Dennis invites Neville to join him, while the guy attempts to get Eric to join him. However, Eric does not seem to be interested in Dennis's offer. Eric is changing for the better daily, as he participates more attentively in the therapy sessions. The young guy has gained some self-control and is more receptive to other people. Eric seems calmer and more at ease when conversing with Oliver and his group mates, smiling and gagging. One day, Neville, watching Eric's improvement while attending a therapy session, storms into the room where they were meeting. The guy then attempts to aggravate Eric by recounting one of his most humiliating moments. Hearing this, one of the group members makes a joke that irritates Eric, who gets enraged. Oliver and another group member, Tyrone, attempt to calm Eric down. Tyrone fights with them because he too couldn't control his emotions. When the gang members start fighting each other, Oliver cannot stop them. Mrs. Cardew, one of the prison's highest-ranking administrators, eventually notices the disturbance, and informs Oliver that Eric will be booted out of the therapy session, since he has breached the agreement. Oliver attempts to persuade Mrs. Cardew to reconsider her decision, since he has made considerable progress during the therapy session. Mrs. Cardew is adamant about sticking to her choice. Following the uproar, Oliver seems to struggle with controlling his rage, and attempts to strike the warden. Meanwhile, Eric is furious and upset with his father for interrupting his therapy session, and releases his rage by striking him. Neville does not fight back, instead allowing his son to beat him up until Eric is happy. Eric believes his father views Neville as a loser, and lets him win since he does not fight back. Due to the struggle, Eric and Neville are apprehended and placed in solitary prison. When Dennis attempts to arbitrate between them, Eric continues to confront his father, and strikes him. Dennis orders the warden to kill Eric after he had assaulted and belittled him while in solitary confinement. Escaping from solitary prison, Neville goes to Dennis to apologize for his son's actions, and urges Dennis to assure Eric's safety. Dennis lies to Neville about protecting Eric, telling him that he already considers Eric a member of his own family, and that family should defend one another. While Neville is telling Dennis that he will not accept his son's death, prison officers in the basement beat him, and begin to hang Eric so that it seems to be suicide. Dennis then strikes Neville, attempting to murder him. Neville can overcome him and stabilize him. He immediately rushes down to the basement to rescue his kid, who the guards are readying to hang himself. Before he can save his kid, Neville has to first battle and incapacitate the wardens. He defeats the guards in time to rescue Eric, but the warden reports the event to the jail board as an attempted suicide. Eric is upset and sobs when he realizes his father is attempting to rescue him. He has no clue his father loved him so much, and that everything Neville did was for his protection and benefit. Eric, who was sleeping in the hospital room to recuperate from his condition, is visited by members of his group, who offer him support and encouragement for what has recently occurred. Soon, Eric goes to his detention cell, and is contacted by a jail warden requesting him to accompany him. It comes out that Neville would be transported to another jail that day, due to his irresponsible acts in rescuing his kid. The guards grant the father and son an emotional moment. The movie's message is to not spend your youth by impulsive choices that will lead to unhappiness. Use your youth to accomplish things that will make you and others happy, and you will not be sorry later. Never ever injure other individuals, let alone our parents. Even though parents might be harsh at times, they care about their children and hope that they will not endure the same fate as them. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Turn on the notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out.